everyone. This is Coach Jackie. Oops. And I am really excited to have Dave Jurena from the Soup Market with us today. My guest has also worked at Sanford's here in Milwaukee. He's cooked benefit dinners in New York and Chicago, among other things, that we'll get an opportunity to hear about during our interview. Downtime, he loves to travel outside Wisconsin and also eat at supper clubs. They're working their way through Ron Feola's two supper club books. Ron and I went to high school, grade school together, so I'm very much all about the supper clubs. There are about 100 between the two volumes, and they're probably around 20 or so. So something unique, right? So as the owner of the Soup Market, he also enjoys canned soup now and then. I love that. A childhood thing that you can't shake. And I get that totally. There's something about that that's a reminder of our childhoods. But ironically, his daughters and wife don't eat canned soup because they have an unlimited supply of great soup for over 20 years. So there's no need to do that. He's most proud of his two adult daughters and his wife. They have been together 35 years and he's only 51. So married 28 years next month. Happy early anniversary. So it's my pleasure to welcome David Jurena to the show today. Hey, David, do you like Dave or David?
Either one is fine.
Okay, awesome. So tell us a little bit about your personal story.
Well, I started cooking professionally about 2 weeks out of high school. I was kind of a nerd in high school. I actually took, besides the home ec classes that you could take in high school, I literally took night classes through MATC, probably my sophomore and junior years of high school. So I really knew that was what I wanted to do from an early age. My grandmother had a great impact on me. She inspired me to become a chef. She was a great cook. Simple food, but really delicious. I mean, to this day, my favorite meatloaf is her recipe. We actually, honored her memory by creating a soup out of it. We have a meatloaf and mashed potato soup that uses her meatloaf recipe. So I knew that was kind of what I wanted to do early on. And I was given an opportunity 2 weeks out of high school to apprentice for Sandy D'Amato at Sanford. They had only been open about 6 months at the time. This was back in 1990. And doing that was probably the best career move I ever made because it allowed me to meet some, pretty amazing people. And we traveled to New York and cooked at the James Beard House. I accompanied Sandy down to Chicago and cooked one of the courses at Robert Mondavi's 80th birthday dinner with him at the Four Seasons Hotel.
Wow.
So it was very cool for somebody of that age to be able to be exposed to things like that. So that was a very great start to my early career.
That is awesome. So what's a funny story your family tells about you that you'd be willing to share?
Well, I think the eating canned soup is spot on. That's just something that, for most people, that's not a big deal. You either like it or you don't. But that was something I really grew up on. And, my grandmother wasn't a soup maker. So I don't eat it a lot, but I guess it's kind of ironic that, here I am making 25 or 30 different soups a week, and I still enjoy a can of tomato soup every now and then with a grilled cheese, or there's a few others that I like. So they kind of make fun of me for that, but what can you do?
Right? I was just thinking when you said that, I was like, tomato soup and grilled cheese. Yum. That brings back childhood memories for me as well.
Absolutely.
So tell us your story of how the business came about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
Well, back in my probably mid-20s, I was managing a bakery in the Third Ward, and they had two locations. And they actually had a guy who was a full-time soup maker. And between their two stores, they were making about 150 gallons of soup a week. And something just, kind of jumped out and said, like, there's an opportunity here to pursue something like this. And so I talked to the soup maker, whose name was Tim, and we started having meetings, outside of work, and just thinking like, could we actually make this a business? Could we the original focus of the business was to wholesale fresh soup to local coffee shops and restaurants that might not either have the staff or the space or the equipment to make
Mm-hmm.
the soup. And it literally took probably 2 years of research. And a funny little story was, as we were doing this, some of the people in the kitchen kind of got wind of it. And at one point, somebody's like, "Hey, did you see Seinfeld last night? It was all about soup." And so, like, literally, we had the idea probably a couple months before the soup episode aired on Seinfeld for the first time. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, back then, DVRs didn't exist, so I had to wait for the episode to be run in syndication before I ever saw it. But
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought, okay, I think we're onto something. And it took about 2 years to do the research, to find the money, to find the space. Just trying to get something like that off the ground is a lot, and especially when you don't have the resources to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember what we had asked the bank for, and what we got was about, maybe 25% of what we wanted. And
Right.
so it's like, well, we got to figure out how to make this work. So we did, and it was kind of a rough start. And that first business was called the Soup Kitchen. That lasted about 3.5 years. We actually closed down about a week after 9/11.
Oh, sure.
It really didn't have anything to do with that. I just remember it because of that particular time in life and everything that was going on. We had lost the lease on our kitchen. And unfortunately, empty kitchens just sitting around waiting to be rented aren't really a thing. So then it probably took 2.5 years of research and building a kitchen, and we finally reopened in February of 2004. So just this year, we celebrated 20 years in business.
Happy anniversary. That is fabulous. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the soup market.
So we started in 2004. Like I said, it was a continuation of the soup kitchen, and what was different about that was we actually had um, like a retail environment. You could come in, order a bowl of hot soup, sit down, enjoy your lunch or dinner or whatever. And that was something that the soup kitchen lacked because it was just basically delivery only. We did home delivery back then. We sold to coffee shops and bakeries. We also did farmers markets, which we continue to do with the soup market. So that really allowed us to have an identity because back then a lot of people would, they'd have our soup and they'd be like, "Oh, are you the guys in Walker's Point?" Which was, a company called Soup Brothers, which unfortunately went away during the pandemic. Um, so having a retail space of our own allowed us to finally start building our own brand. About a year and a half into the business, we opened at the public market. We were there for about 15 years. Left about 2 years ago, and but we've had other locations come and go. Unfortunately, whenever I open a store, it's never with the intent of we'll be here for a year or two and then we're going to close. I always look at something as I want to be around part of the neighborhood for as long as we can.
Right.
So currently we operate 3 stores. We have the main one in Bayview, which is where we do production. We have one on the west side in Washington Heights that we've been there for over 10 years now. And then we have one in Hales Corners, and the one in Hales Corners does our baking for us. So they make 2 or 3 of our breads. They do all of our cookie doughs, Rice Krispie treats, dumplings. Trying to think what else, but that one we've had one in Hales Corners since 2008, but the current location we've been there since 2018, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
We had just literally moved across the street. It was out of one shopping center and into another across the street, and so we've had a presence in Hales Corners since 2008.
And
And
that's right next door to where I get my nails done. So I'm there all the time,
okay,
and the soup is fabulous.
yeah, well, thank you. That move, I didn't expect it to really impact us like it did. I
Mm-hmm.
thought most people would be able to continue finding us. Well, you know we put signs up maybe a month before we moved out, and still we had people for probably a year and a half or maybe even 2 years after we moved saying, "Oh, I'm so sad that you closed in Hales Corners." And we're like, we didn't. We literally just moved across the street. I think our address went from 5301 to 5300. So
Right.
yeah, I mean Highway 100 is a busy, you know,
Yeah.
4 lane kind of highway, but it's really right across the street.
Right. Exactly. And that's very interesting because when I used to have a business too, and I moved like a couple doors down, and it's amazing how people there, were so used to going to one place, right?
Yep.
So awesome. All right. So let's just talk for a minute about a story about where someone pushed you or inspired you to help you know that you could do it and the impact that that had.
Um, I get a lot of inspiration from family members over the years. Like my, sister jumps in and helps. She used to do farmers markets for us. It's actually funny. My parents, who are retired and live in California, they live there. They have a house here, and they're usually here for holidays. But this past uh, they come in around Thanksgiving. They stay till the first of the year or so, and then they go back. But we've been shorthanded, and so they jumped in. I mean, they're in their upper 70s, but
Yeah.
they jumped in and they were doing like half of my wholesale deliveries on Friday. And so like these are people who were just, they are kind of like supporting, and they don't want us to fail, so they'll pretty much do whatever they can to jump in and help where they can. So that's really inspiring to me.
Awesome. So, what's your biggest learning as a business owner? Because you've been a business owner a long time with lots of different experiences.
Could you repeat the first part? It cut
Sure.
out.
What's your biggest learning as a business owner?
That you don't do it by yourself. This is definitely a team sport, and I have really, really great employees. I have, we've been around 20 years. I have probably three of my 13 employees have been with me for 15 years. We have a couple that are approaching 10 years. So I just have really amazing people. And if you don't, you're constantly looking over your shoulder. You're constantly second guessing yourself. I had a partner for the first 10 years of the business. Unfortunately, he passed away about 9 years ago. Um, so it was kind of a nice um, division of, I was in charge of the food. He handled the administrative and the office stuff. So, we kind of had an arrangement. He won't come in and try to cook food, and I won't go in and try to pay bills. And so unfortunately, that's all in my lap now. But we make it work.
So, what's been your biggest challenge during the years, and who was or is a fellow business owner or colleague who helped you get through that?
Um, I have this really great friend named Sari, and she and I have been friends for about 10 years now. Um, Fellow business owner, she has a medical concierge business. And, it's just nice to talk to somebody outside of the business who kind of understands what you do. But it's not like I can go to my employees and start like unloading on them, because they don't need to hear that, nor should they hear that. But it's kind of like, people who are in a similar position, who, whether it's recruiting good employees, or how do you get more sales, or just just being able to bounce ideas off of somebody like that is really helpful, because I really try not to bring it home. And I mean, my wife has a very good idea of everything that goes on in the business, but I don't want to, she doesn't work in the business, so I don't want to burden her with some of these things, because she has her own career. And it's like, this is something I chose to do, so I'm figuring it out. So
She sounds wonderful. So if you had to pick three people in your business owner journey, I should say, that you're most grateful for being there for your business growth, who are they?
one of them is a very good friend who passed away last Easter, like a little over a year ago. His name was Lance, and he was an older guy, but he was kind of a mentor that, very successful. He had started several companies in his life, and was he was in his 80s when he died. But just a really, really smart guy. Really understood, business and life. And just, I felt like every time I talked to him, I was kind of in school, like, classes in session, and I was learning. And so he would be one. Sandy D'Amato would be another, just because, I really, learned all the basics, and all, the culinary foundation, came from him. Um, he's just a really solid guy, great chef, wonderful person. And, ironically, he sold his restaurant probably over 10 years ago. And just this past fall, my wife and I took a week-long driving trip of the East Coast to watch the colors change out in New England.
Mm-hmm.
And we wound up stopping to see Sandy and his wife Angie. They live in Hatfield, Massachusetts now, and we stopped and had lunch with them and spent probably 4 hours there, and just kind of reconnected and stuff. So he's definitely an amazing person from my past as well. And not sure if I have a third. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there, but those two really stand out more than anybody.
Mm-hmm. Great. So what's the next big thing for you in your business? As you think about the, next 1 to 3 years, what's your number one area of growth opportunity?
Well, something that I, always talk about, and we really haven't moved forward on, is, I really would like to franchise this idea. It was actually something that Tim and I talked about right before he passed away. He passed away unexpectedly in 2015. And what's interesting is, a month before he died, he kind of laid out his 10-year plan. He was, I don't know, 13, 14 years older than me, but he had laid out his 10-year plan. The first 5 years, we were going to open 5 more stores. And then the second 5 years, we were going to open 5 in Chicago. And then after that, he was going to retire. And I mean, literally a month later, he was gone. So that came to a screeching halt. But I've always had it in the back of my mind. I've talked to people about, who specialize in getting it done for businesses. And I just think it's the kind of thing where there is not, when you think of, nationwide, when you think of pizza, there's, 3 or 4 that come to mind. Sandwiches and, things like that, hamburgers, same thing. But in the soup space, there's really no dominant player. And what I like about our concept is that we have some, I don't want to call it stability, but we have some sameness with, like, our sandwiches and salads don't change often, but then our soups are changing every day, and we have 6 to 9 soups at a time, any given day at either any of our stores. So people can get, wide variety. And then they also know that there are, like, um, some things that are going to be on the menu all the time, such as our sandwiches or salads or cookies or whatever. So I just think that as a concept, I would really like to move that forward. But part of the problem is I'm working in the business right now. I'm not working on the business, which is unfortunate. I'm actually back in the kitchen making soup, which is, if you would have asked me 20 years ago, where are you going to be in 20 years? That wouldn't have been my answer. But I do it because I have to right now, and I also enjoy it. But at some point, I will free myself up from that and try to do some planning for the future.
Okay, great. So what do you see your biggest challenge being in the next, with the franchising especially, right?
Biggest challenge always, in restaurants or probably any business, is going to be access to capital. That's really what moves things forward. Since Tim has been gone, I've done it without any kind of outside investment, any kind of outside partner. And, that's something that I certainly would be interested in talking to people about, if that was the direction, they saw this business going. Because I just think that, you know, when Tim was alive, like, we didn't really even think beyond Chicago, but we thought, man, if our concept can succeed in Milwaukee, which is a great market, but doesn't have the disposable income that a city like Chicago does, it would be nice to see what we could do down there. And especially since it's 90 minutes away.
Sure.
it would be easy to keep an eye on. And so I would say, to answer your question, access to capital is hard. Finding and retaining really great talent is always going to be a challenge, especially in today's labor market. So those are the two big ones. And the other one for me is just kind of freeing up my time to really focus on making that happen.
So what advice do you have for business owners who are trying to, I mean, you said, you had a lot of people, a lot of influences, a lot of, you said earlier that it's hard to do it on your own. So what advice do you have for business owners who are trying to do it on their own?
Keep going, because,
Okay.
if you really believe in something, nobody's going to believe in it as much as you do. And you just have to have something deep inside that says, don't quit, it'll get better, and, keep going. So I would say that would be my first thing, is like, if you really think it's a good idea, if it's working, and, everybody's faces struggles, no matter if you're a business owner or an employee or whatever. But, it's one of the most rewarding things, but it's also one of the most challenging things. So, for me, I just, when I started, I was in my mid-20s, and I kind of thought, I'm like, okay, well, I am risking some money here. I had owned a house at a very early age, and I took out some home equity, and I had some savings, and it was a risk because I just didn't know how it was going to go. But I kind of said to myself, I'm like, if this thing fails, and if I fall on my face, I have the rest of my life to pick myself up, pay it back, figure it out, and move on. And at least then I'll know, that I gave it a shot. And, if it didn't work, then, I did not always have to wonder, but, it's a scary step. Like, I've tried to talk to some friends about starting. I have a friend who's a very talented baker, and, talking about starting a business, and, I even said, you can use our kitchen. You can get started slow until you can afford your own place. And, certain people are just not ready to do that. And it's fine. I mean, but, you do have to kind of have nerves of steel, and just at some point you're going to jump off the cliff, and, you got to do it with both feet. So.
That's wonderful advice. So, David, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people who've helped you on your journey. What would you like to say to them?
Thank you. Couldn't have done it without you. And, I hope that you're, happy with the results you're seeing, and, know that you had a great impact on the soup market. And, we continue to try to do our best every day to keep moving it forward.
Well, David, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I can't wait to go. In fact, I might even go there this week to check out some more of the soup.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie. I really appreciate it.